Nerd Bourbon Film and TV Addiction Hotline. Is everything okay?
Hi, thank you so much for answering. It's been such a long time since I've rewatched one of my favorite movies or TV shows, but today I relapsed.
Welcome back to Nerd Bourbon Relapse, the podcast series where we revisit the series that we love. Todd, how are you doing today? You can't double dip on this joke. We did that in the first episode of Relapse.
I'll double dip all the time. But
we can't keep making this fucking joke, Todd.
it's a classic. It's good.
We did dive headfirst into the memeiest Star Wars movie though today. Speaking of jokes, just mere moments ago, finished watching Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and finished out our relapse into the prequel trilogy. How did you feel about this whole experience?
Well, this is very easily the best of the prequels, by far.
Oh, easily.
Easily.
Yeah, easily. So, I mean, obviously coming into this one, you already know it's going to be the most, I guess, pleasurable to watch. But it's also just like, time and the separation and, again, the memes have also just made it such a fun, like, all of them have been fun to watch with you and, like, commentate on as we're watching it.
Yeah.
But this one in particular is, like, just so, like, it's been hyper-analyzed, like, every little stupid line in it has just been held under the microscope, over the years, and it's just fun to pick apart and make fun of.
The memes have transcended the prequels, honestly.
Yeah, they have. They definitely have. But it's also just a good movie,
Yeah.
Like all the prequels, it has its problems. But this one I think is the easiest one to watch. I think this is the most, there's this big trend going on right now with Star Wars fans where people are saying like, "Oh, this is actually the best one. Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie." I'm just like it's so cool to hate on, The Last Jedi and stuff like that. That, they're like, this is really where the series peaked right here. So it's kind of funny, like, I'm like, come on, you guys. It's a good movie, but it's not, it's really, in my opinion, I'm just like, it's still not as even close to being as good as any of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Or even The Force Awakens, really. But, I'm not here to, we're not here to rank them. We're here to talk about what we watched. And what were some of the things, like when you're talking about Episode 3 specifically, what are some of the standout things that you think of, like, as your kind of favorite bits of this movie in particular?
Basically, one of the final scenes of the movie is like when Vader is Vader.
No!
Cut that part out, and that's a real good scene. Like,
well, it's cool to see, they almost go a little too far in that direction at the end, where there's almost a little too much setup, like, it's all shit that you want to see. Like, it's cool to see Vader getting, like, sort of assembled and put back into his suit and stuff like that. And it's, but when he's, like, literally, like, standing on the deck of the Star Destroyer watching the first Death Star be built.
I don't think
and
they
stuff.
needed to do that, but...
Did you really have to go that far,
They definitely didn't.
And like I said, though, it was kind of a perfect ending, though. That ending sequence where Obi-Wan kind of hand delivers Luke to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and they're staring at the twin suns setting over Tatooine,
Yeah.
Like, that right there, that's a really beautiful, perfect ending, final shot to the prequel trilogy, But yeah, that whole last bit is a whole bunch of, like, really the final, like, 5 to 10 minutes of the movie is a bunch of, like, fan service.
Yeah, fan service and setup, basically.
Yeah. So some of it's really cool. Some of it's not. Some of it I feel like is a little too far. But hey, what else? I know you. I know coming into this, I think the second we started up the movie, you were hyped for some Grievous.
Oh, I'm always hyped for some Grievous, even though, like, Like we talked about it while we were watching. It's just like I don't think they handle certain characters as well as they should.
I think they actually do a pretty good amount with Grievous, given how much he's in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really only in like a third of the movie, maybe a little more, but he's, and he is kind of a big deal, but they do a decent amount with him. He gets a good amount of screen time. Hell, he's on screen more than Darth Maul ever was.
They learned their lesson from that, but it's still not good enough.
I guess. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they actually introduce Grievous in the Genndy Tartakovsky like animated Clone Wars?
Yes.
I think that's where he first appeared, like before he was ever in the movie. He first appeared in that kind of miniseries.
Yep.
Which is a really fun miniseries too. I really like that miniseries. They have the whole thing up on YouTube, I think. It's like they just cut it into like one big 3-hour cut.
Did they? Shit.
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube. But no, like Grievous is a cool character though, and like I think that they don't do a lot with him, I guess, but given what they have, like the amount that they do with him in the amount of time he is present in the movie, he exits the movie at the appropriate time, because like think of how stupid it would have been to have Grievous there still alive and still like doing his thing when shit really hits the fan.
Oh yeah, once like Order 66 and all that shit.
Yeah, like he can't be around for that.
He can't. They got rid of him basically at the perfect time. And honestly, I don't remember him dying like a complete bitch like that. I mean, I'm lying. I remember him dying like a bitch. I don't remember exactly how he died though.
Yeah, we were both kind of in that boat. We were like, because we knew that the moment was coming where he was about to get killed by Obi-Wan. We were just like, what happens to him again?
Because I remember it was like something with his organs, like the moment like he, Obi-Wan like kind of like strips the breastplate away a little bit. And
yeah, he kind of pries open the breastplate and reveals his sort of organs. Yeah.
So I like my first thought was like, which would have been honestly a cooler death, is if shoving like the electric like little cattle prod ass weapon into it.
Right.
Would have been way cooler than what happened.
Taking that vibro staff off the ground and just like jamming it in there. Yeah.
Just boom. Would have been way cooler.
Although I do like what they did there, where he shoots him like a couple times with the blaster or whatever, and then he gets up after he kills him. He's like, so uncivilized. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it is good.
But no, like and we were even talking, like one of my favorite scenes, maybe my favorite scene in the movie, is the Order 66 scene.
Oh yeah, Jedi Holocaust, as you put it.
Right. Yeah, just a total slaughter, just a sad, kind of harrowing scene of a Jedi Holocaust, like just seeing these people with, getting mowed down by these clones that they've trusted with their lives for 10 plus years, and it's especially sad when you watch the Clone Wars animated series, and that series really does a lot to flesh out the relationships that these masters had with these clones. Mm-hmm. It really does a lot to do that, and it makes it all the more heartbreaking when you're watching, like, what happens to Plo Koon, as we were like, pouring one out for my boy,
basically.
But when you watch what happens to him in this movie, and knowing the close relationship he had with his troops, like, it makes it so much more sad. That is such a harrowing scene. That's something that I think they really nailed quite a lot, and really that's something that I have to credit George Lucas with, is like effective sadness, I guess, because like the thing that I really like about this prequel trilogy, and these sort of like the way that he deals with politics, even though in many ways that's like the worst part of this prequel trilogy, is like all the political shit. It's also super important, and he handles it so like he makes it like the underlying menace of Palpatine and the corruption of Anakin, like it really carries the weight of like a Shakespearean tragedy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like when you see Anakin finally turn and do all of this horrendous shit, it really is sad. And when you see the bad guys win, essentially, systematically win and fucking slaughter almost all of the Jedi Masters. I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking in a way because like one moment the Republic was thriving and the Jedi Order was thriving, and then in the next,
it's no longer the Republic; it's the Empire.
Right. It's almost like it's almost like that stereotypical scene, like they did this in Breaking Bad, where it's like that prison thing where like they just do like a mass like prison shanking kind of thing. Like they just make that shit happen like all at once, like just a bunch of people get shanked, in unison, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like that. It's just like this mass, genocide. It's like shit. Great scene, and just a cool concept too.
Yeah.
I gotta respect that. I gotta respect George Lucas's willingness to go that far. I'm trying to think of some things I want to point out, because I feel like this movie has, like, on one hand, it's coming into episode 3. It's like so obvious where everything is gonna head.
Yeah.
And that it's the ending, and where, because it's a prequel, like coming into episode 3 is different than coming into episode 9, like we're going to be doing next year, because in episode 9 we don't know how it has to end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like coming into episode 3, we know how it has to end.
Yep.
And we know where all of this has been heading, and we know the sequence of events. And so there's really not that much, I guess, surprise. And there's not that much to really unpack as a result. The movie really is just it's the
culmination of all the build up for the first two. There's really not a lot to talk about. That's the fucked up thing.
It's setting the table. And then you get to episode 3 and it's finally time to eat.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's definitely a good way of putting it. Like, there's things I could talk about, like how, like, imagine like what if scenarios of like what could have been type shit.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, and we were, I liked talking about sort of the the things and the parallels to the original trilogy, and sort of Anakin as a character. And while we were watching it, we were even just talking about Hayden Christensen, and like even though he's kind of like a really shitty actor, like there's a part of me that still like kind of loves him. Like part of me is still like just there's so much, say what you will about him and his acting, blah blah blah, like, and like make fun of him for being like a tormented emo kid or whatever in this movie. That's kind of what Vader is, Oh, yeah. And like I even made this point too when we were watching it. Like even in even in the original trilogy, Luke is like, I can feel the conflict in you. Like
he's still very much that like conflicted child, as you said.
Yeah, he's just that conflicted boy that was on Mustafar, trying to save the girl he loves. He's still very much that person underneath it all, 30 plus years on. And I really, I don't know. I thought that was actually, say what you will about his actual acting chops, but I think Hayden Christensen does capture that vibe, that conflict, that emo kid, I guess, vibe. That's kind of what Vader is underneath it all.
I think the shots where like it's just him, like with like tears going down, like a tear going down his face. That like him, like when he doesn't talk, he really portrays it really well, just like on his face and shit. Right.
Well, because you have to imagine that's the kind of shit that is going on under Vader's helmet.
Yeah.
Like you have to imagine that sort of just raw. He is, for better and worse, like the thing that defines him is his raw power and his inability to control his emotions.
Yep.
And moreover, like it really drives home, the more and more you think about it, the more you realize that the story of Star Wars is not just about, and George Lucas has said this, it's not about spaceships, it's not about laser swords, it's about family, and it's about failure, you know, and these movies and yeah, even the prequels are, you know, they very much are about families and failure and sort of, yeah, like entertaining the what if scenarios, like you said, and chasing what could have been is one thing, but seeing the way that failure is the best teacher, you know, something that's even touched on again in a big bad way in The Last Jedi, you know, that's what these movies are about, even still to this day.
Yep.
You know. No, yeah, I love I love all that stuff, and I was talking to you. It's so funny because, like, you know, it's been a while since I've watched these prequels, but I'll never forget this one. Episode 3 is definitely the one that I have the most vivid memories of, because I saw that midnight opening night, you know, at our shitty little theater here in Louisiana, and I saw it with I saw it with my best friend at the time, and we literally showed up wearing robes, like black robes. You know, we got to keep in mind we're like 16 years old or whatever. peak emo Hot Topic kids, probably wearing our trip pants underneath. God. Oh yeah, it was a whole 9 yards. You know, wearing our trip pants and probably some sort of shitty band shirt, you know, and then wearing like a black robe or a brown robe or whatever, and with shitty plastic lightsabers, we engaged in a full scale. There's probably like 8 to 10 of us having a full scale, like, LARPing lightsaber battle in front of the movie theater at midnight when this movie premiered.
That's terrible.
It's so bad, and I'll never forget it. It's like a cherished memory of mine. In fact, I think that's true. I think we were wearing trip pants, because I think at one point somebody's lightsaber got caught in one of the stupid, like, useless belt loops that are on those things. God, I'll never forget that. I don't know. It's just funny. These prequels, revisiting these prequels has been interesting for me, because it's been like revisiting a different era of my life, I guess.
I feel that. Like, brings back some of my old memories and shit.
Yeah, it just brings back, like, you know, when I watch the original trilogy, I feel like I'm like 8 or 9 years old again. And because I very much had, like, and I think the original trilogy very much has that kind of like childlike wonderment to it. Because, like, that's what Star Wars was for me when I was a kid, you know, growing up with the original trilogy. Like, it was this big, wonderful, like, majestic kind of thing. And then the prequels represent sort of my teenage years.
Yeah.
And growing up with it in that way. So coming back to it, like, I would go back to the original trilogy all the time, and it makes me feel like a kid again. Well, you know, coming back to this makes me feel like a teenager again, specifically, you know, which is weird, and it's a whole other thing. And that's I've been making this joke a lot lately. Like, that's a name I haven't heard in a very long time. I have not thought about the era of my life that these movies occupy in a very long time. So that's...
I would like to be able to. I just don't remember shit.
Another episode of Todd in the Middle. Yeah, no, did you watch the... I mean, do you remember if you saw the original trilogy before these?
No, I definitely did. I definitely did.
Okay. So you remember that much?
Yeah, I remember that. I wasn't one of those animals.
Well, I mean, look, some people... I know several people who were, you know, they were raised with the prequels, and to them, that's their Star Wars, you know?
I feel that.
When people were talking shit, and people were saying things like, oh, the prequels raped my childhood, blah, blah, blah. Like, to them, that's, you know, that's what they grew up with. That's what they know. That's Star Wars to them, you know? And it's funny for me, because I feel like you and I and others kind of in that, you know, late 20s, early 30s kind of age set, we're not quite old enough to have grown up with the original trilogy when it was coming out. We're not quite young enough to have been, like, kids when the prequel trilogy was coming out. We're just right in that right age where, we kind of have a tangible relationship with all three trilogies.
Yeah.
A measurable, tangible one where it was like I said, I'm a little kid watching the original trilogy, and I'm a teenager watching the prequels, and now here I am, an adult, watching the sequel trilogy and the new movies and stuff. So it's I guess my Star Wars fandom has different eras, and relapsing into these prequel eras with you has been interesting. It's been an era that I have not visited in a long, long time. So I'm looking forward to moving on to the next one.
Well, before we move on to the next trilogy, we have to do a spin-off.
Of course. We have to do Rogue One. So, anything else you wanted to say about Episode 3 specifically before we wrap it up?
I think that's about it, man.
I don't have too much more to say. I do, there's what more can you say about it?
It's one thing I will say. I found myself cause with Clone Wars and Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace, we were sitting there talking back and forth more because it was like those movies were way more shit, and we were talking about it. With this one, even while we were watching it, I just found myself just actually watching the movie,
just more engaged.
Right. So I got to give it that.
Makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. No, it's I mean, it's a legitimately good movie.
Yeah.
Even in spite of the fact that I was laughing all the time because of all the memes and stuff.
Oh yeah,
like that.
Of course I was laughing at that shit. Like, good,
good, Anakin, good. No. Yeah, no. There's some good.
Kill
shit.
him. Fucking shit.
Kill him now.
It's just I love. That's actually one thing I do love the look on Dooku's face. He's like, what?
Right. Yeah. No. It's fun. It was a fun experience, and like I said, I I was just reminiscing the whole time about the first time I ever saw the movie, and all the shit that R2 does in the movie, and I was like, oh my god, I remember how how the theater just exploded when R2
when he did the oil spill and lit those fuckers on fire. Yeah.
Did the oil spill and used his jet engine to light the two droids on fire. That was so cool, and I just I'll never forget being in the theater for that moment, and and hearing the audience applause as the credits rolled and stuff like that. And again, it's been this is the point of Relapse, I guess. The point of this series is to do exactly this. It's to tap into, to revisit these series, to tap into that, I guess, nostalgia, and to tap into those old eras that the series that we love represent in our brains and in our lives.
In a weird way, I feel like this episode is very much like the end of Star Wars Part 1.
A little bit. Well, and it kind of is. We're moving on. We're doing Rogue One next, obviously. We're going in chronological order with this, and on to the next. It feels like the end of an era, the end of the prequel era. As we move on, and like I said, it's been a pleasure. And with that, I think we're off. We will catch you guys next time. Get fucking dunked on. Bye.
See ya.